Have you ever looked at your life, your patterns, your relationships, your constant anxiety, and wondered, why do I always end up here? Why does it feel like no matter how much I try, I'm stuck? Let me tell you something no one ever told you. It's not because you're broken, it's not because you're weak, it's because there's an invisible wound running your life. A wound that was never your fault, but became your responsibility to heal. And if no one has ever told you this before, I will. You were never meant to carry this alone. Your exhaustion, your overthinking, your fear of rejection, they're not flaws. They are survival mechanisms, created by a younger version of you who did everything they could to stay safe in a world that wasn't safe enough. Carl Jung said something that changed my life forever. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And that's exactly what's happening. Your unhealed wounds, your childhood conditioning, your suppressed emotions, they have been quietly shaping your reality for decades, until today. Because what you're about to hear, in the next few minutes, might save you from 30 years of pain, of struggling, of repeating the same patterns that were never yours to carry. And before we begin, I want you to do something powerful. Write in the comments right now, I am healing. Let that be your declaration, your commitment to yourself, because the moment you name it is the moment the healing begins. This space is for you. Here, we don't pretend to be perfect. Here, we reconnect. We remember. We come home to who we truly are. Beyond the pain, beyond the patterns, beyond the past. So if you're ready to step into your healing, take a deep breath, because what you're about to learn can change everything. Have you ever felt like no matter what you do, something still feels missing? Like you've been running, striving, pleasing, surviving, but deep down, there's an emptiness you can't explain. What if I told you? It's not because something is wrong with you. It's because somewhere along the way as you were forced to abandon parts of yourself, just to survive. Carl Jung said it clearly. The greatest tragedy is not what happened to you, but what you had to abandon within yourself to survive it. You didn't choose this. You didn't choose to disconnect from your feelings. You didn't choose to suppress your truth. You did it because it was the only way to be loved, accepted, or safe. And now, years later, the cost shows up in ways no one warned you about. In anxiety that won't go away. In exhaustion that no amount of sleep can fix. In emptiness, even when life looks fine from the outside. No one told you this. But ignoring your emotions, ignoring your truth, has a price. And your body is the one paying it. That's why you keep asking yourself, why do I feel this way? Why do I attract the same painful situations? Why can't I just be happy? But the real question isn't, what's wrong with me? The real question is, what parts of me have I been forced to abandon, just to be loved, just to belong, just to survive? And if no one ever told you this before, let me be the first to say it. Your pain makes sense. Your patterns make sense. And your healing starts the moment you remember who you truly are. Carl Jung dedicated his life to understanding this hidden truth. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This video is not just information. It's not just self-help advice. It's an invitation, a portal back to yourself, back to the parts of you that never stopped waiting, to be seen, heard, and loved. So before we go any further, drop a comment right now, type I am healing, not just for the algorithm, but as a declaration, a commitment to yourself, a reminder that your healing matters. And if you're ready to go even deeper on this journey, you'll find a link in the description for my guide, a step-by-step blueprint for inner healing based on Carl Jung's teachings. It's there for you whenever you're ready. But stay with me until the end, because today, you'll understand something that most people never do. Something that could save you from spending the next 30 years stuck in the same pain. This could be the moment your life finally shifts. If you're ready, let's begin. This isn't who you are, it's who you became when being your true self felt unsafe. Carl Jung explained it perfectly. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But what happens when, as a child, no one ever showed you how to do that? When the world didn't teach you how to accept your emotions, but instead taught you how to silence them? Think about it. You weren't born disconnected from yourself. You didn't come into this world thinking, "I'm not good enough, I'm too much, I have to earn love." No. You were born whole, curious, sensitive, full of life, with a heart wide open to experience the world. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Maybe it was a parent who couldn't handle your emotions. Maybe it was a caregiver who was emotionally unavailable, distant, or critical. Or maybe it was the silent trauma of simply not being seen, not being heard, not being understood. The wounds that hurt the most are often not what was done to us, but what was withheld, the love we didn't receive, the safety we didn't feel, the validation we never heard. So you adapted. You learned to be quiet, to stay safe. You learned to smile when you wanted to cry. You learned to take care of everyone else, just to be accepted. You became whatever the world needed you to be, just to survive. And here's the hardest truth. Every time you betrayed your own feelings to stay connected to others, a small piece of your authenticity was lost. That's why Jung taught that the greatest tragedy of trauma is not just the wound itself. It's the disconnection from the self that happens as a result. And now, decades later, your body still remembers. The tightness in your chest, the tension in your stomach, the racing thoughts, the emotional exhaustion, the people-pleasing, the inability to rest even when you're tired. It's all the language of a nervous system that has been trying to survive for far too long. No, it's not in your head, it's in your body, it's in your subconscious. It's in the parts of you that never had the chance to fully grow because they were too busy protecting you. You see, the nervous system doesn't care if you're 6 years old, or 36, or 66. It doesn't operate on time. It operates on safety. And when you're inner child, that younger part of you and still believes, I have to be perfect to be loved. I have to stay quiet to be safe. I have to take care of others to be worthy. Then the body will keep responding as if it's still happening. This is why healing isn't just about thinking differently. It's about becoming safe inside yourself again. It's about reconnecting to the parts of you that you were forced to abandon and letting them know you're safe now. You're allowed to exist. You're allowed to feel. You're allowed to be. And maybe right now, as you listen to this, something inside you feels tight, like a lump in your throat or a heaviness in your chest. That's not random. That's the part of you that's been waiting and your entire life to finally be seen. So let me ask you something. When was the first time you felt like your emotions were too much for someone else? When was the first time you had to shrink yourself, silence yourself just to belong? You don't have to answer right now, but your body knows, your subconscious knows. And this is why most people never heal, because nobody ever taught them that ignoring your emotions, abandoning your needs, isn't just painful, it's dangerous. Your body holds it all, the anxiety, the fatigue, the autoimmune issues, the chronic tension, the burnout. And here's the key insight Carl Jung brought to the world. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. But fate is not fixed. It's just a pattern you didn't choose, but one you've been living because no one showed you another way, and right here, right now. This is that other way. This is the moment where you start realizing your anxiety isn't the problem, your depression isn't the problem, your procrastination, people-pleasing, perfectionism. They were never the problem, they were the solution. A brilliant, painful, protective solution to a world that once told you, you can't be fully yourself and still be loved. But that was never true, and deep down, you've always known it. So as we go deeper, stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to uncover exactly how trauma gets stored in your body, how it shapes your mind, your relationships, and even your future, until you reclaim your power. This is just the beginning. How trauma quietly programs your mind, your body, and your life. If no one ever told you this before, let me be the first. You were never the problem. The problem was that you were forced to survive in a reality that never knew how to hold your sensitivity. And here's where Carl Jung's wisdom becomes life-changing. Jung taught us that trauma doesn't just leave emotional scars, it literally reorganizes the way your mind and your body experience reality. Let me explain. When you were a child, you didn't have logic. You didn't have words. You had only one operating system. What do I need to do to stay safe and stay loved? If expressing your needs brought rejection, if showing anger made someone withdraw, if being vulnerable caused shame, your nervous system made a choice, not a conscious choice, a biological one. It learned to suppress, to hide, to please, to overperform, to disappear. Not because something was wrong with you, but because at that time it was the only way to survive. Here's the part nobody talks about. Your nervous system never updated the story. Even now, decades later, a simple text left unanswered can trigger the same panic you felt at 5 years old when you wondered, did I do something wrong? Even now, a tone of disappointment from someone you love can send you spiraling, not because of what's happening now, but because your body remembers what it felt like to not be enough. And back then, this isn't weakness. This isn't brokenness. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it was wired to do. And here's the tragedy Jung pointed out. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. So what do we do instead of healing? We stay busy, we numb, we scroll, we overwork, we overgive. We stay in relationships where we feel invisible, because the pain of being alone with ourselves feels even more unbearable. But here's the truth no one taught you. Your mind isn't the problem. Your body isn't the problem. Your reactions aren't the problem. The real problem is the story underneath all of it. The story that says, I'm not safe to be myself. My emotions are a burden. If I set boundaries, I'll lose love. These aren't conscious thoughts. They live in the subconscious, in the body, in the nervous system, in the parts of you that formed before you had words. And unless we bring these patterns to the surface, they will run our lives, and we will keep calling it destiny. This is exactly what Jung meant when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Let's make this real. Imagine a child growing up in a house where emotions were unsafe. Maybe her father was emotionally absent. Maybe her mother was overwhelmed, anxious, reactive. Every time the child cried, she was told, stop being dramatic. Or worse, ignored completely. Her nervous system learned, my needs cause disconnection. It's safer to be quiet. Fast forward to adulthood. She struggles with boundaries. She overfunctions in relationships. She feels guilty when she rests. She attracts partners who are emotionally unavailable, not because she's broken, but because her nervous system confuses emotional unavailability with love. This is trauma programming, not trauma in the form of an event, but trauma in the form of what didn't happen, the love that was missing, the validation that never came. Here's what happens in the brain. When a child faces chronic emotional neglect or subtle rejection, the amygdala, the brain's threat center, becomes hyperactive. The hippocampus, responsible for regulating emotions and memory, shrinks. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, regulation, and empathy, goes offline when triggered. What does this mean in real life? It means your brain literally begins to perceive disappointment as danger, rejection as threat, loneliness as death. But the biggest heartbreak? Your body starts to believe that being yourself is dangerous. This is why so many people feel like they're stuck in cycles they can't break, attracting the same kind of partners. This is the loop. This is why people suffer for years and decades, lifetimes. But here's the miracle. If the nervous system learned this, it can unlearn it. If the subconscious absorbed this story, it can rewrite it. And that's the work we're doing here together. This is the work of becoming conscious. The work of remembering that your sensitivity is not a flaw, it's your greatest gift. That your emotions were never the problem. They were messengers. that your needs were never a burden. They were sacred signals from your soul. And maybe right now a part of you feels resistant, a voice that says, I don't know if I can change. That's not the truth. That's the wound speaking. The same wound that once protected you, but now is simply ready to be witnessed and released. So take a deep breath, because in the next part, we're going to go even deeper into how to break this cycle, how to become safe in your own body again, how to step out of survival and into freedom. Stay with me. This is the part that changes everything. Helpful, easy, the one who holds it together, the one who doesn't complain, the one who never asks for too much. And how much of that was never actually you, but a survival strategy. Carl Jung called this the development of the persona, the mask we create to survive, a mask designed not from who we are, but from who we thought we had to become in order to be safe, to be loved, to belong. But here's the price of the persona. The more we live inside the mask, the further we drift from our true selves, the more disconnected we become from the very parts of us that hold our peace, our joy, our power. And that's why trauma doesn't just hurt. It hijacks your identity. It convinces you, this is just who I am. But it's not. That anxious, overthinking version of you isn't the real you. The one who's always scared of being rejected isn't the real you. The one who tolerates crumbs, stays silent, or lives on edge. That's the version of you that was built by pain. And the most powerful realization you'll ever have is this: if pain taught you this, love can unteach it. This is where the real healing begins, not with forcing yourself to be positive, not with pretending the past didn't hurt, not with gaslighting your own nervous system into getting over it. Healing begins when you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, what happened to me? That made me believe this is all I deserve. Because here's what the nervous system needs more than anything else: safety. Safety to feel, safety to express, safety to exist without fear of abandonment. And let's be brutally honest. For a lot of us, safety never existed in childhood. It's not because our parents were evil. It's because they were wounded too. Generational pain doesn't start with you, but healing can. Jung said something that most psychologists still shy away from. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of their parents. When your parents were disconnected from their own emotions, they couldn't validate yours. When they were living inside their own survival patterns, they couldn't teach you how to regulate yours. When they felt powerless, you inherited that story, not through words, but through energy, through nervous system modeling. This isn't philosophy. This is neuroscience. Babies don't regulate themselves, they co-regulate. If the parent is calm, the baby learns calm. If the parent is anxious, emotionally absent, volatile, the baby's nervous system wires for hypervigilance, self-suppression, and disconnection. And so here we are, adults, trying to build love, build careers, build confidence, on top of nervous systems that were never taught how to feel safe, simply being. But now, the responsibility and then the privilege becomes ours. Because while trauma wasn't your fault, healing is your responsibility, not because you broke it, but because no one else can heal it, but you. Let's make this practical. Healing starts with 3 radical shifts. 1. Stop abandoning yourself. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you dismiss your own feelings, every time you betray your own boundaries, your nervous system feels it. It whispers, see, we're not safe to be ourselves. But every time you pause, take a breath and ask, what do I actually feel? You begin reprogramming. You begin teaching your body that it's safe to listen to myself. 2. Make the unconscious conscious. Jung's most famous teaching wasn't spiritual, it was survival. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Start noticing your patterns. Who triggers you? What situations make you feel small, anxious, defensive, invisible? Those moments aren't random. They're mirrors, showing you where the wound still lives. The goal isn't to avoid triggers. The goal is to heal what they reveal. 3. Reparent your nervous system. The truth is, you don't need someone else to save you anymore. You need you. You need to become the loving presence that your younger self always needed. When the fear rises, instead of judging it, place a hand on your heart and whisper, "I'm here. You are safe. I won't abandon you again." Do that. Not once, but every time. Because consistency, not intensity, is what rewires the nervous system. And maybe right now a part of you still doubts. That's okay, that's not your truth. That's the wound talking. Because here's what I know with absolute certainty. Your true self has never been broken. Buried? Yes. Forgotten? Maybe. But broken? Never. Beneath all the overthinking, the anxiety, the guilt, is the real you, the one who still knows how to laugh without fear, the one who still knows how to rest without guilt, the one who remembers how it felt and to simply exist without performing. That version of you is not gone. She's not lost. She's just waiting for you to come home. And that is the ultimate healing. Not becoming someone new, but finally remembering who you were had before the world taught you to forget. In the next chapter, we bring it all together. This is where healing stops being a concept and starts becoming a lived reality. Stay with me. We're not finished yet. You are not broken. You are becoming. Take a breath. Let it land. Because if no one told you this before, let me be the first. You are not broken. You were never broken. What happened to you was never your fault. The pain, the silence, the survival patterns, they were never signs of weakness. They were your nervous system doing everything it could to keep you alive in an environment that wasn't safe. And here's what no one told you growing up. You should have never needed to be that strong. You should have never needed to become the fixer, the peacekeeper, the one who holds it all together while falling apart inside. But you did. Not because you were flawed, but because you were adaptive. And now, the version of you that survived is not the version of you that needs to lead anymore. Carl Jung taught that the first half of life is about adaptation, learning how to fit in, how to survive, how to belong. But the second half of life is about individuation, about peeling back the layers of who the world told you to be so you can remember who you actually are. And that, my friend, is the real work, the sacred work. Healing isn't about becoming someone who never gets triggered, or someone who never feels sad, anxious, angry, or afraid. Healing is about becoming someone who no longer abandons themselves when those feelings arise. Let that sink in, because this isn't about fixing yourself. This is about coming home to yourself. You see, your triggers were never flaws. They were text messages from your inner child saying, "Please come back. I still need you." Every time you felt rejected, every time you felt invisible, every time you felt like you had to prove your worth, that was the younger you, still trying to figure out, am I safe to exist yet? And here's the truth. It was never your job to be perfect. It was never your job to be easy, convenient, small, or pleasing. It was never your job and to abandon yourself and just to be loved. But now, it is your job to stop betraying yourself, to stop apologizing for your sensitivity, to stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never designed for the fullness of who you are. Because you were never meant to fit. You were meant to shine. This is what Carl Jung meant when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And yes, there will be grief in this process. Grief for the years spent trying to be who you were not. Grief for the love you didn't receive. Grief for the ways you silenced your own voice in order to survive. But hear me when I say this. Grief is not a problem. It's not an obstacle to healing. Grief is the doorway. It's the evidence that you're finally safe enough to feel what you once had to suppress, just to survive. So let it rise. Let it wash through you. Let it empty out all the false stories you were fed about your worth, your value, your enoughness. And when the grief softens, what remains is truth. A quiet, steady truth that's always been there beneath the noise. You are enough, as you are. Right now, without needing to fix, without needing to prove, the journey forward isn't about becoming a version of you that doesn't feel pain. It's about becoming the version of you who knows how to hold yourself through pain, with softness, with compassion, with tenderness. This is the shift Jung called integration. When the parts of you that were exiled, the wounded child, the angry teenager, the scared adult, are no longer left outside the house of your heart. They are welcomed, seen, heard, held, and in that moment, the war inside ends, because safety isn't something you find out there. It's something you build in here, inside your own body, inside your own nervous system, inside your own relationship with yourself. So as we close, I want to leave you with this truth. You were never meant to carry it all alone. You were never meant to silence your needs, your dreams, your truth, just to be accepted. And you don't have to do it anymore. The version of you that once whispered, "Am I safe yet?" can now hear the answer loud and clear. Yes, you are safe now. I am here. I'm not leaving you ever again. This is the sacred return. This is what healing actually looks like. And if this message spoke to something deep inside of you, let yourself be witnessed. Drop a comment right now that says, "I am healing." Let it be your declaration, your soul's reminder, that this time you are choosing yourself. And if you're ready to go deeper, if you're ready to turn this understanding into transformation, you'll find the link to my ebook below, a guide designed to help you reconnect with your inner child, break generational patterns, and step into the life you were always meant to live. And if this kind of healing speaks to you, join this community, subscribe, because here, we don't just talk about healing, we live it together.